folks, let me tell you something. A 17-year-old boy named Austin Metcalf is dead, stabbed to death at a track meet in Texas by a kid named Karmelo Anthony. The jury looked at the evidence, deliberated, and came back guilty. 35 years. The system worked. Justice was done. A family got some measure of what closure can even look like after something like that. And what happened next? The father of the convicted killer gets in front of a CBS News camera, CBS News, naturally, and tells America the jury was, quote, all white. A lie, demonstrably, factually, on the record false. There were minority jurors, multiple. The jury was not all white. But the camera was rolling and the narrative was ready, and nobody at CBS felt the need to push back in real time. So off it went into the bloodstream of the internet. And then, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, Democrat of Texas, starts casting doubt on the verdict. A duly rendered verdict in a murder trial for a kid who stabbed another kid with a knife at a track meet. And Senator Tim Kaine, the man who was one heartbeat away from the vice presidency, God help us, gets in front of a microphone and says he has a, quote, hard time understanding the claims that this was racist, which is the most Tim Kaine sentence ever spoken. My friends, I'm Rick LeBow. This is Rush Hour, and we are just getting started. All right, let's get into this properly, because this Karmelo Anthony situation is not just a murder trial. It is a test. It is a test of whether the left actually believes what they say they believe, or whether law and order and trust the jury and believe the process are just phrases they borrow when they find them convenient. You know the answer. You've known the answer for years. You listen to this program. Here are the facts, since apparently facts are optional now in the national press. Austin Metcalf, 17 years old, was stabbed and killed by Karmelo Anthony at a track meet in Frisco, Texas, back in April of last year. It was not ambiguous. It was not a case where you squinted at the evidence and scratched your head. Karmelo Anthony had the knife. Austin Metcalf ended up dead. The trial proceeded. The jury convicted. 35 years in prison. Now, the father, Andrew Anthony, goes to CBS and says the jury was all white. Let that marinate for a second. Not, I believe the verdict was wrong. Not, here are legal grounds for an appeal. Just, the jury was all white, which is the universal distress signal, which is the flare gun the left fires whenever a verdict doesn't go the way they wanted. It is automatic. It is reflexive. It is, at this point, almost boring, except that a family just lost their son, and now the man convicted of killing him is being turned into a martyr. And CBS just ran it. Didn't stop, didn't fact-check in real time, didn't say, sir, we've reviewed the jury composition, and that is not accurate. Just, here's what the father said. Back to you in the studio. That's the drive-by media, folks. They shoot and they drive. Now, enter Jasmine Crockett. Representative Jasmine Crockett of Texas, member of Congress, a person who presumably took an oath to uphold the laws of this country, she starts casting doubt on the verdict. Why would you do that? What is the theory here? That 12 jurors, after hearing all the evidence, decided to railroad a young black man for reasons? That the Frisco, Texas jury pool was conspiring? This is the argument? Because if Jasmine Crockett believes in the justice system, and she should, she's a lawyer by training, then she should know that casting unfounded doubt on a jury verdict is not commentary. It is poison. It poisons faith in the institutions she claims to care about. But that's the game. That's always been the game. The left loves institutions when institutions rule their way. The moment a jury, a court, a vote, an election doesn't produce the result they wanted, suddenly the institution is corrupt. Suddenly the process was tainted. Suddenly there's a sinister hand behind it all. Meanwhile, and I want you to hold this thought, these are the same people who spent 4 years telling you to trust the science, trust the experts, trust the process. You weren't allowed to question Dr. Fauci. You were not allowed to raise an eyebrow about certain 2020 election procedures. But a murder conviction with a multiracial jury, that's up for grabs. That's suspicious. Let me tell you what this is really about. This is the coalition of the oppressed doing what it always does, which is rank every event, every crime, every verdict by the races of the people involved, and then decide whether justice was served based entirely on that ranking. Austin Metcalf doesn't fit the template. He was white. The person convicted of killing him was black. Therefore, according to the left's moral accounting, the sympathy flows one direction and the skepticism flows the other. They will never say that out loud. They'll dress it up in language about systemic bias and historical context and all the rest, but strip it down, and that is what it is. And Tim Kaine, bless his heart, he's just the most beige man in American politics. Tim Kaine says he has a hard time understanding the claims that this was racist. Now, I want to be charitable here. I think he means he finds the claims dubious, which is correct. The claims are dubious. The jury was not all white, but the way he said it, that soft, wet senatorial hedge, I have a hard time understanding. That's not a condemnation. That's a man leaving the door open. That's a man making sure he doesn't alienate the Jasmine Crockett wing of his party while technically not endorsing a lie. It's cowardice dressed up as nuance, and the Austin Metcalf family has to watch all of this. They have to turn on their televisions and see a congressman casting doubt on the verdict that convicted the person who killed their son. They have to read headlines framing this as a racial controversy. That family, which has conducted itself with extraordinary grace throughout this entire ordeal, has to sit there while the drive-by media manufactures a narrative in which their dead son is essentially a footnote. That's not justice. That's not compassion. That is the American left in the year 2026, and it should disgust every decent person, regardless of where they sit on the political spectrum. The verdict was sound. The jury did its job. Karmelo Anthony will serve his time. And Austin Metcalf's family deserves better than what this country's media and political class have given them. Don't doubt me on this one, folks. All right, the roundup. Rapid fire. Let's go. First up, California is blocking a federal audit of its voter rolls, and the DOJ is taking it all the way to the Ninth Circuit. Now, the Ninth Circuit, the most overturned appeals court in the history of American jurisprudence, God's waiting room for bad legal arguments. But let's set that aside. California is refusing to let federal auditors look at who is registered to vote in their state. They are fighting this, actively fighting it. Now, why? Why would you fight that? If your rolls are clean, if everything is on the up and up, what exactly are you afraid of? Oh, it's about privacy. No, it isn't. Oh, it's about states' rights. No, it isn't. Not from the people who spent a decade telling you states don't get to decide anything about anything. And this is happening right alongside a separate story: hundreds of non-citizens found on New Jersey's voter rolls. Hundreds, just sitting there. And the Senate, including some Republicans, God bless them, the turtle's legacy lives on, blocked the SAVE Act, which would have required documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote. Proof of citizenship to vote in America. This is controversial now. This is a bridge too far. You need an ID to buy Sudafed at Walgreens, but requiring proof that you are an American citizen to vote in American elections, that's extreme. That's voter suppression. The audacity, the all-cap, flashing neon audacity of these people. Here's what they are banking on. They are banking on enough of you not paying attention. They are banking on the story getting buried under celebrity gossip and sports scores. It will not get buried on this program. Story number 2. New York City. The brand new mayor, Zohran Mamdani. And I want to be very precise about this, because this man is a self-described Democratic socialist who makes Bernie Sanders look like a Chamber of Commerce luncheon speaker. Mayor Mamdani has announced $15 million taxpayer dollars for gender-affirming care. That is his quote. $15 million. And he called it a first step. First step. A first step. New York City has people sleeping on the subway. New York City has public schools that cannot teach children to read at grade level. New York City has small businesses that got absolutely steamrolled during COVID and never recovered. And the man running the place is standing up at a podium announcing $15 million for gender medicine and calling it a first step toward more spending. This is the governance. This is what they chose. And look, New York, God love it, it is a great American city with great American people, and those people deserve better than a mayor who thinks the most pressing issue facing their city is expanding gender clinics. That is not a serious person running a serious government. That is a man performing for an audience that is not the majority of his constituents. But he was elected. So, last one, Scotland. Now, I do not often venture across the pond, but this one is too good to pass up, and it contains a lesson. A Bulgarian migrant was found guilty this week in what's become known as the Scottish Axe Girl incident. Here's the setup. This man was shouting sexual remarks, lurid ones, the stories say, at a group of children. A 13-year-old girl responded by brandishing an axe. A 13-year-old with an axe, which, if you think about it, is a very Scottish solution to the problem. But here's the part that should make your blood boil. When this incident first happened, Scottish police went out and warned the public against spreading misinformation about it. They leaned on the people discussing it online. They tried to tamp it down. They didn't want you knowing what happened or who did it. Now the man is convicted. The facts are all on the table, and the police have issued what the headline very accurately describes as an almost apology. Almost. Not a full apology, an almost apology. Because admitting you tried to browbeat the public into silence over a migrant crime is apparently a bridge too far, even after a conviction. This is what happens, folks. This is what happens when protecting the narrative becomes more important than protecting the children. 13-year-old girls should not need to arm themselves with axes, and the police should not be in the business of silencing the people trying to talk about why that happened. Good on that kid, by the way. Resourceful. My friends, We covered some ground today. A boy is dead, and his killer is going to prison. And somehow that is not the end of the story, because the people in charge of our national conversation cannot let a verdict stand when it doesn't fit their preferred moral hierarchy. Jasmine Crockett should be ashamed of herself. She won't be, but she should. California is hiding its voter rolls from federal auditors. New Jersey has hundreds of non-citizens on its rolls, and the Senate blocked the one bill that might have helped. These things are connected. They're not a coincidence. And across the pond, a police department tried to bury a migrant crime, got caught, and issued an almost apology, which I suppose is progress. Here is what I want to leave you with today. The American people, the ones who get up in the morning, go to work, pay their taxes, raise their kids, and try to mind their own business, those people have more common sense in their little finger than the entire combined governing class of the Western world. They see through this. They always have. That is why this show exists. That is why you are listening right now. The elites have mistaken your patience for agreement. They have mistaken your politeness for surrender. They are wrong, and they are going to keep being wrong, and we are going to be right here every single day to make sure you know it. I'm Rick LeBeau. This has been Rush Hour. Same time tomorrow, if they let us back on.